Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Hassan, and I thought today, instead of doing a daily vlog, I would do something more informational for all the music producers who have reached out to me recently regarding my last video, or my fifth vlog, the studio session for the song Rush. They were asking me exactly what steps I took to create the beat in that, as the video did cover the beat making session, but more the vibe and the energy and the process of, rather than the more technical aspects of what I did in the digital workstation to create the beat. So what this video will do, it'll go over the elements that I've utilized in Studio One by PreSonus, the digital audio workstation, to get me as close as I can to my creative vision for a specific beat. In this case, this beat that I created not too long ago. Let's take a listen to the beat, just so you guys have an idea of what I'll be discussing. Awesome. So, what I'll do is I'll go step by step exactly how I work personally when I'm creating a beat, and in this case I'll go through this beat specifically. Now, this has various trap elements in it. First and foremost, it's got the trippy hi-hats, it's got the snare rolls, it's got the 808 bass, and I'll go through exactly how I created those trippy hi-hats, how those snare rolls were created as well. So yeah, let's get started. Now, what I do is, when I'm generally creating a beat, I load up an instrument that I like. I'll go through the sounds and I'll pick something, right off the bat that I like. I don't spend too much time picking a lot of different sounds. Once I hear something that I can generally work with, I dive right into the beat, as I don't want the sound selection to kind of throw me off and hinder my creative flow. So in this case, I opened up Dune 2 by Synapse, which is a great soft synth. It's got some excellent sounds in it. What I wanted for this specific beat, I wanted something arpeggiated. In this case, I went through a few different sounds and I came across this instrument called Chime Swimmers. And playing around with it, I immediately liked how A minor and E minor were sounding played one after another. So and then the E minor. So in this case right here that you can see, let me just pop this up a little for you guys. I recorded the A minor and the E minor for the 9 bars, and then I looped this all throughout the song, except for the last third verse here. Now I know this isn't labeled, so it's a little hard to follow, but the general is, this is the intro right here, this is the chorus, this is the verse, this little portion is the bridge, then the chorus again, then the verse, bridge, chorus, the third verse, and then the chorus again, and then the outro right here. So that's the layout of the song. Once I had the primary instrument laid out, I moved on to the second instrument, which I used as a piano. Let's take a listen to that in solo. So minimally, what my beats will consist of is at least 3 instruments, 1 main instrument, 1 secondary instrument as a complement, another instrument which I have right over here for the chorus to kind of give it more body and more emphasis on the chorus, and then I'll have the bass, the drum kit, and the drum kit will in itself consist of various different elements. Obviously the bass drum, the snare, the hi-hats, the rides or the cymbals, and then maybe I'll layer out the snare with some claps to thicken out the sounds as well. And then I have some transition elements here, the snare rolls, the riser, and this is just another example that I'm going to show you after. It's about the snare rolls, how to create them in MIDI, because I do have a sample here. And then the drum kit here, as I mentioned prior to. So the first 2 elements that we already have down is the main instrument right here, and then the secondary instrument. Now the good thing here is, now if you don't have a general understanding or a refined understanding of music theory, the good thing about Studio One is this portion right here. So what happens is, if you are playing, for example, in this case I'm playing A minor, and I don't know which keys are in that specific scale, what I can do is I can go over here to the left of the piano roll in Studio One, just click scale, select A minor, and what that'll do is it'll highlight all these keys that are blue here that are in the scale, so you'll never be playing off scale, right? So if it's any other key, and it would obviously change that according, this is F minor, it'll show you all the keys that are within that scale, which is a handy little tool for those who don't have a general understanding of music theory, and it's really helpful as well. So yeah, going back now, we've laid down the first instrument and we've laid down the secondary instrument. Let's listen to those together again. See, after I looped this guitar for the first portion, I dropped the octave with the same notes, just to give it that different characteristic for the second portion of the for the chorus. Now, at this point, I still felt that the chorus was a little empty, and I needed another instrument to fill up that space. So I went over to my Bluetooth soft synthesizer, and I scrolled through to find another arpeggiated instrument that would give me that mid-frequency body to that chorus. Right, and originally this is not how the chorus actually, this is not how the instrument actually sounded. Let me show you what I did to this instrument and how it was without any inserts or any plugins on it. So let's close that. As you can see here, right over here is the chorus instrument. So I did throw off a send here with a beat delay. So this is without any of the inserts or without any of the sends on. This is how it sounds. So with the with the inserts on, what I did was I threw on a little delay, I threw on a filter with a low frequency cutoff, and I threw on a flanger just to give it that harmonic addition, and then I EQ'd it and threw it up at a little, about 200 Hertz to fill it up in that muddiness area of the frequency range. So this is how it sounds without it. And then this is how it started sounding with all the. It's got that arpeggiated flanger, which I wanted for the chorus. Now, once I recorded and threw all the inserts on, this is how it now sounds. This is how it sounds alone. So let's listen to that instrument. Now, as you can see with the volume as well, it's a little low. In that case, it's a little hidden in the back because I only wanted that arpeggiated flanger to really shine. The rest of the instrument is audible, but it's not too overpowering to. It's not that overpowering that it'll take. That it will be too noticeable and overpower the main and the secondary instruments here. So let's play them all together and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Awesome. So next up was the bass. So instead of having a normal soft synth with a bass plug-in and throw it off and playing, I actually wanted to go to my 808s, as I mentioned earlier on the video, and throw them on a sampler so I could pitch it. Now, I love the drum sequencer and the sampler in Studio One. So Sample One is the one that comes with Studio One, and throwing on instruments is really easy in this program as well. You just open up the Finder window on the right side here. Let's go through this quickly. So you have your instruments, your effects, your loops, your files, and then rest of your selections here. Now your files are your specific files and your drum kit that you have in your sounds. Your loops are actually internal loops that you can download from PreSonus that they give. I don't have any downloaded, as you can see. And then these are your inserts and your plugins, your VSDs, etc., and the ones that are internal to PreSonus, and then your instruments and your soft synths, etc. So Sample One is the one we use for the bass here. So it's as simple as it's actually the same for any other instrument or plugin. It's just drag and drop, and then it'll pop up here as another instrument. So we have the bass one. That was it. We have the bass one popped up here, and then if you wanna, this would obviously be empty once you pop up a new one, and it's simple as just going back to your files. Here I have my 808s and subs, picking out the sound that you want, right, and then dragging and dropping it into the window for Sample One. Now, stop that. So what we have here is the bass. Now, before going into actually playing the bass, the 808 here, and pitching it, we want to make sure that the original sample is in the middle C, because what happens is you'll pitch it to any note thinking that the original sample is in middle C. So you want to find out what the actual sample is in. So what I would do in this case, what I did in this case is I'd open up the mixer here, just throw a tuner, in this case right here, and then I would play middle C right here, and I would see what the actual sample is, what note it's in. In this case it's actually C, so I don't have to change anything. But if I was playing this middle C and it was saying that the actual sample is in, say, E, then I would take this little cursor on the top of the piano roll on the Sample One, I would change that to E, and this would automatically correctly pitch this sample into the actual key that you're playing. Great, so let's move that back because it was in C originally. So that's how you tune any sample in Sample One. So what we have here is the bass. Let's play that, and so you can hear how I played the bass for this. And together with the instruments. And then it carries on obviously in the verse. Let's listen to that as well. Great. So over here you'll see a little portion right before the drop comes in here on this bar. It's a little lead-in transition that I had with the 808 to lead in into the chorus, as you can listen. These two notes right here, and then it drops there, which is a great little transition element to bring in the chorus and give it more impact. Awesome. So what we have next is we get into the drum kits and the snare rolls. Actually, before that, let's talk about the riser. The riser is another transition element that I like to use that gives more emphasis to the upcoming bars. In this case, it will be the chorus. Now, there's a lot of sound kits out on Google that you can look for. A lot of free sound kits have a lot of great risers and sweeps in their sound banks that you can download to use. We have our own selection here, and obviously there's a few hundred of them. In this case, this is the one that I thought that worked best for it. Let's listen to that one. And as it transitions actually into the chorus. I like that, and at that point I thought, you know, that sounds pretty good, but I think some percussion would really drive that transition into the chorus more effectively. So what I have here is I actually have a loop for a snare roll, but I'll show you exactly how to make the snare roll in Studio One as well, because these are very vital elements to trap production, especially the snare rolls and the trippy hi-hats, which I'll show, which have the same type of sequencing as the snare rolls. So this is the snare roll playing individually. And this is what we have so far, along with the other elements and the snare roll. I think that sounds pretty good. Now let's actually talk about how this snare roll is made in Studio One. So what I have here is I threw on another sampler right before this tutorial just so I could show you how this snare roll is made. Just for any trap producers who want little tips and tricks and easy ways to do this. So what I have here created is the same exact. Now the sample, I just chose any odd sample for the snare. It sounds exactly like that loop that I played about 5 seconds ago. So this is what I made with, with the snare sample and the MIDI sequencer. Right? So it's as easy as that. Let me show you how I made that. Now the good thing about Studio One is there's hotkeys for everything, especially if you want to assign hotkeys to something like making 164th notes or 132 notes. So here, let me show you exactly how easy that is. So say I want to create this all over again. I'll create it up here in these notes. Oh, actually, let me show you exactly how to sample. I'm sorry, I jumped a little ahead of myself. So let's move back a little. Now, actually getting these snares into different pitches, you've probably already guessed if you caught on already. It's the same way that I did the 808 bass up here. So I open up the sampler, I drag and drop it from the instrument window, which pops this up, and then I go into my files, I go into my snares, I drag and drop the snare into the sample 1 window, and then I can automatically pitch the snare to whatever note I would like. So once I have that, I go into my piano roll here. Excuse me. I take my freehand tool and I can create one long segment right here. Once I've created that segment, let's move this up a little so we have room to work. So once I've created this segment here, now this is how easy it is in Studio One. All I have to do is right click this. So for example, I want this to be split into 1/16th note. Let's do that. Right? I want this to split into these portions right here. So all I have to do is right click it and press split at grid. Now, even to make that easier, what I did was I went into the keyboard shortcuts, I went into split at grid, and I created a hotkey for that specific tool. And all I have to do is now, once I've created that segment, I just click that hotkey, and then it automatically splits that into 132 notes all across that whole segment. So what we have here is, let's take that out. Right, so we have, great. So in that sense, what I did was I created that these are 1/16, 132, 1/16, 132, and then I dropped the pitch down incrementally until the end note right before the transition, and these are all 1/64th. And again, it's as easy as literally just clicking the 1/64th, clicking on whichever segment, pressing your hotkey, or right click and split at grid, and then it splits those into 1/64th notes. Really easy, really good for your workflow, so you don't have to individually go in and start clicking here like this to create 1/64th or duplicating them, etc, etc, etc. In that case, you'll get this within a matter of seconds. Great. And then obviously you have your velocity, you can change your modulation, you can pitch bend, and your aftertouch options at the bottom as well. So that's how you create that. Now let's mute this, since we already have the snare roll sample. So that's what we have so far. Awesome. So now, as I mentioned, the last portion is the drum kit. Now, the reason I'm working in Studio One, a little backstory before I move on to the last portion, is I've worked with a whole lineage of digital audio workstations since I started producing. I started off in Fruity Loops back when I was using Windows about 10 years ago. Fruity Loops is an amazing program for producers. A lot of well-known producers use Fruity Loops, and they've created some astonishing production out of that. From Fruity Loops, I've moved on to Cool Edit Pro. Cool Edit Pro is now known as Adobe Audition after Adobe bought it out. I used Adobe Audition, which was great, but it had its limitation. I used it for a while, and then I moved on to Pro Tools. Pro Tools obviously is an excellent tool. It's known to be the industry standard. I occasionally do go back to Pro Tools, obviously, when I'm working with bigger studios. If I'm working with Metalworks in Canada or any other studio that does use Pro Tools, then obviously I would have to go back to that and kind of make my transition back and forth. So Pro Tools does come up every so often. From Pro Tools, I did move on to Logic Pro X. Logic Pro X is a great exclusive to Apple only. It's a great digital audio workstations, and the reason I brought this little story up because of Logic Pro X's drum sequencer. The drum sequencer is Logic Pro X. What they use is Ultrabeat. If you have used Logic Pro X, or if you are using it right now, you'll understand why I'm not a big fan of Ultrabeat. It's very it's not very creative. It's very dull looking. It doesn't inspire me when I was using it. I don't know why they haven't updated it. They should look into updating their drum sequencer. However, that is the only reason, that is specifically one of the primary reasons why I left Logic Pro X to move to Studio One, because of the drum sequencer in Studio One comparatively to Logic Pro X. Nevertheless, Logic Pro X is in itself a great program as well, and I've used it for several years, and I have come up with some great production and records from there as well. So, and now that we move to Studio One, here's the drum sequencer we'll use is Impact. It's its own internal drum sequencer. Again, simply drag and drop, and then it'll pop up. So in this case, popped up right here, the drum kit. Now, it's as simple as going into the files, loading up your samples and loops into each of the individual. Let's unmute that first. In each of the individual drum pads, and I'm using an Akai Mini right now, so each of them are loaded up into each correlating drum pad. The only thing is, I don't know why Akai Mini's first drum pad is the second drum pad on Impact, so that's why there's no sample loaded up here. If somebody can actually enlighten me on that and how to fix that, because my OCD goes wild when I look at this empty patch and the rest of them filled up. Nevertheless, let's move on. So, I loaded up my drums here, loaded up my snare, my clap to layer with the drum, with the snare, sorry, to kind of fatten it up, and then my hi-hat and my ride, which was the most that I needed, because I felt like the instruments and the snare rolls and the risers were enough to fill in that percussion element. These 5 elements were more than enough, and then at that point what I do is I play through that specific portion, and I'll start banging away at the drum pad to get what type of sound I want, and once I'm happy with the specific loop, I'll go in and record it. So once we have that handy, we load it up and we play our drum loop. Now, I'll show you the hi-hats right after I play the drum loop, because the hi-hats do have that trippy hi-hat pattern that is used in a lot of trap production, and I'll show you exactly how to do it. It's exactly how we did the snare roll as well. So let's listen to what we have after we recorded this drum loop right here. So, I felt like that was enough elements to kind of holistically bring the beat together. So this is what we have now. Awesome, so we have now completed the beat. And honestly, with the workflow here in Studio One, this it was just one thing after another. The workflow was easy to go with. The instruments were thrown in, the bass was thrown in, the drum kit was thrown in. It was all easy go, and this whole beat was composed within a matter of about 15 to 20 minutes, I'd say max. So that's what we have here. Now the last portion is again the hi-hats and the trippy hi-hat pattern that we have here. Let's mute out all the elements so we can hear just the hi-hat. And it's honestly the same way that we did the snare roll. We draw it in, or you can play it and then go to your specific elements or specific portions of whichever hi-hat you want, and then split them at grid, and then you can just kind of mess around with it, see what sound you like and how it sounds. Right? Now obviously this beat isn't completely mixed yet, but at the end of the video I'll put up a mixed and mastered version of this beat as well, and then you can mess around with the volumes of each element just to see it to your liking and to work them however you would like. Now, I hope it's been informative. That's how I personally go about making or producing music in Studio One. Now each beat is different, so it doesn't primarily mean that every beat that I start will have one main secondary instrument, and then a chorus, and then bass, riser, snare rolls. Every beat is different. Some beats I'll start off with a drum line that I really like and kind of build that whole production around that drum line. Or I'll start off with a bass that I really like, or if I'm sampling other music, other songs, I'll take that sample and kind of create around it. But the basic element is the basic element is primarily the same along all the beats. Just have the percussion, the bass, the various instruments that complement each other, and then the outline for the rest of the song. In this case, well, what I did was I have the intro, which leads into the first chorus, then the verse, which leads into the second chorus, and then right before the second chorus there's a little bridge here, which we can listen to right here when the drums fall out and then the guitar comes back in, which transitions into the chorus with the chorus instrument here. Awesome, so I hope this little informational session has been beneficial to you. If you have any questions or concerns or any comments, feel free to leave them in the section below. Now, if I did go over something too quickly or something that's hard to understand or a little ambiguous, feel free to leave your comments, questions in the section below, and I'll address them as accordingly. Okay, remember to subscribe. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Take care.